Hey, this is Mikey with another After Effects tutorial. This is addressing a couple of requests I had on how to do this inflating balloon text look that you see at the beginning of all my tutorials. It's pretty easy. This should be a pretty quick tutorial, so let's get started. So first off, I want to say, in order for me to easily get this look, I'm actually using a product of mine called Kinetitype, and I'll just show you that right now. It's all of these animated typefaces, all these letters, and I've pre-animated everything, and that's how I made the beginning of these videos. Is I just use this, I put in the A and the E, and it just did it automatically. Now, what I'm going to show you is how I created this. But this has a little bit more. I can actually come in here, and if I go to the master control, I can switch from the bouncy scale over to like a twisty scale, and it's going to look different. Or I can go to the right on effect, and it's going to look different as well. So that's Kinetitype. You can see I've got uppercase, lowercase, and numbers. And then there's a menu to control it all. You can control if there's a stroke or the fill color and things like that. But there's a link in the description that has an official promo and overview of how it works. But that's what I used. But let me show you how I created the font to begin with. So what I have here is a finished product. So let's just hide that. And what I have is two letters. Doesn't matter the color, but you want them separately. You don't want them to be on the same layer, because you need them to be separate when you turn them into a mask, which I'm going to do here in a second. So what we're going to first do, I'm going to just hide the E. We're going to just focus on the A, and I'm going to right click, and you go to create mask from text. Now there's also this option to create shapes from text, but I'm going to be using the puppet tool with this, and when you use the puppet tool on a shape, it does some weird things, and especially where the anchor point is and things like that. And so I just found it works a lot better with the masks. And when you do that, it's going to create a mask, and it looks like it turned it white, but I can change that later, or I can just leave it white. First thing I want to do is take the anchor point. You can see it right there. I'm going to move it with the pan behind tool. This is the one right up here on the top next to the camera and the rectangle tool, or if I just hit Y on the keyboard, it brings it up. And bring the pan behind tool down to the very center at the bottom. Now I'm going to move forward to about 2 seconds. I'm going to take my puppet tool. I'm going to take this. I'm going to go 1 at the top, 2 in the middle, and 2 at the bottom. When you do this, you want to kind of think about if this was like a wavy inflatable arm balloon man and how they would fold up if they were deflating. And so that's just kind of where I put the puppet points. And I'm going to go back in time about 20 frames. I'm going to just take these bottom layers in, and you can see it's already starting to do some weird stuff. I'm going to show you how to fix that. So right now you can see it created this weird outline, and that's because when you use the puppet tool on a mask like this, you need to do one more checkbox, and that's when you go to the effects controls and make sure it's on transparent, and then it's going to be just fine. Okay, now I'm going to hit U on the keyboard, and it's going to bring up my keyframes. And I can see I've got, this is where it starts, and this is where it ends. I just want to make everything in between look nice and smooth. But what I also want to do is here at the beginning, I want it to look like it's trying to unfold a little bit as the air is inflating it. So I'm going to move these playhead back a little bit more. And let's move these around even more. I'm just kind of making it look like, so as see, it's kind of trying to unfold. Okay, that's looking pretty good. Now in the middle is where we want to make things look, because right now it's just kind of moving up. And I don't want that. I want it to kind of lean off to the side. So right here towards the end, I'm going to take this top keyframe, move it over like that. Maybe take this side one, move it in. You know, I want these side ones out. These bottom ones in a little bit. So it looks like it kind of comes up and then flings a little bit closer. I want it to kind of last minute fling up. And then we're going to do just a little inertial bounce. I'm going to just do by hand instead of try to come up with some fancy expression. It seems to be easier in a case like this. So here I'm at the end. What I'm actually going to do is I'm going to take all these keyframes, going to copy them, move them to the end, and paste them. Just so I have some nice clean keyframes there at the end. Go forward a couple of keyframes. And I'm just going to kind of go back and forth until I get to the end. And you can see it just kind of wiggles a little bit. I want to do the same thing with the feet as well. So I'm at the end and going forward a couple of keyframes. Have them kind of bounce out, bounce back in, out again, in, and they should be done. Let's take a look at that. Maybe we'll have these keyframes at the end a little bit closer. Now I want to show you something. You can see right here, you can see some hard edges. And that's because of the deform tool on the puppet tool. If we come into the mesh, I'm down in the timeline, and right here it says triangles. If I bring that up to as high as it'll smooth all that out. It's going to take a bit more to process, but it's going to look a lot nicer. Okay, now in order to sell this effect, we wanted to start at 0, basically, so completely scaled down, so it looks like it's appearing out of nowhere, to kind of have a nice letter reveal. So let's go back into our keyframes again. And this beginning part, maybe to about right here, I want this to scale up. And so that's why I put the anchor point right down here at the middle. So I'm going to hit S on the keyboard, hit the scale button, hit U again so I see where I'm going. And at the beginning of the struggle where it's kind of trying to unwind itself, let's bring that back down to 0. Turn on the motion blur, and let's take a look at this. Okay, it looks pretty good. Let's do the E, because sometimes it's nice to see this done on a different letter. Gives you some ideas of what you can do with the letters. So that's the A. Now let's do the same thing with the E. I'm going to go a little bit faster on this one. So create mask from shape. I'm going to go ahead and hide the A. Let's grab the puppet tool. Put in a few points. Make sure you have some right on the appendages. And let's go back in time. And then a little bit further back so we can start to see this kind of this unraveling struggle. Okay. Let's find a point where we want to fix it in the middle, towards the end. And what I want to do is I'm going to take this point, I'm going to bring it all over here to the right. And bring that bottom point still in. And take all these keyframes, let's copy and paste them to the end so we have them. And what I want to do is I want to have this little bottom part kind of fling out afterwards. So it comes up, maybe it flings out fast, back in, and then we're going to go back to the original keyframes. Let's take a look at that. Maybe right here it's going to be a little bit up here. That's a little bit fast. That's better. And we're going to do the same thing to the top. And it's going to bounce up. And I'm just moving 2 keyframes at a time by hitting the page down on the keyboard. All right, that's looking pretty good. Now we just need to do the scale. So hit S on the keyboard, hit scale. Go to the beginning. And you know what I forgot to do is I forgot to move the anchor point. So I'm going to hit Y, move the anchor point down to the bottom. And let's scale this down to 0. Okay, let's take a look at these. I'm going to offset them just so we can see one at a time. Okay, looking pretty cool. Now, if you do want to add some effects to this, probably the easiest way in order to make sure everything works, because the puppet tool tends to kind of really take over the layer, and it's hard to add other effects with the puppet tool. So I just usually go ahead and pre-comp this. So that's Command-Shift-C on your keyboard or Control-Shift-C. Give it a name, and then from there you can go ahead and add effects to this. So say for instance you want to add some long shadows, you can use the long shadows preset and drop it right on there. And that is the tutorial. Hope you learned some good stuff here. Again, it's pretty simple stuff. It's just turning the letters into masks. Make sure you do it into masks, not into shapes, because again, the shapes just don't work quite well. And then it's using the puppet tool from there. And if you have any questions, feel free to just post them down in the comments below. And hopefully I can answer them for you. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.